but how are you doing today?
A little hungover, but I'm alive.
A little hungover. So, you started out working
Yes.
at a gentleman's club.
Yes. Guess that's
How did
the
you get
nice way to say it.
how did you get started with that?
A girl that I know, sorry about that. A girl that I know knew at the time was working there. She would brag about how much money she made and she didn't have to do anything and it was so easy. And she wasn't the most beautiful girl, so I thought, well, hell, she can do it. It can't be that bad. So that was I'm old, so that was like 2005. I was there for 5 years.
Did you end up making the money that you thought you were going to make?
No, because I didn't take it seriously. I was more worried about like getting a buzz or having fun, or my mind wasn't really on the money like it should have been. So I wish I would have just been more mature because I could have made bank. And it's not that I didn't at times, especially around the Kentucky Derby, because the strip club, if you want to put it that way, it was a few blocks away from Churchill Downs. So every year we knew when Derby came up or like the farmers convention, which is huge, we knew it would just be like endless possibilities for money. Like girls were driving all the way from Florida and California and New York. They knew where the money was, so the money was just overflowing. As certain times of year, obviously.
Was it for you when you first started working at the gentleman's club? What was that experience like? Were you nervous, scared, excited?
Yeah, it was a week before I ever even sort of got anywhere near undressed. So yeah, I was definitely. It was just weird. I obviously had relationships and been around men my whole life, but it was to see that extent of like behavior and just stuff these people were saying that didn't know me from Adam and the expectations from these people. It was just a lot. And it's like you can't write a how to book on it because different clubs are different, rules are different, clientele is different. But I would wear my jeans and my, wife beater or booby shirt, whatever you want to call it. But I still look like nice and presentable. But everyone else was like almost damn near naked. So it definitely took me a little bit before I ever got to that place.
When you got to that place, how was it for you then? Just normal?
Yes, well, I still was probably one of the most dressed people there. I mean, even the bartender would wear like a bikini shirt. My go-to was wearing like boy shorts and like a long button-up shirt, like a business shirt, and having like a loose tie and the high heels and the makeup and everything. The nails and my contacts matched every outfit I was wearing. I would be like OCD with how I look. Knew you're in a lot of competition. There's younger girls, there's skinnier girls, there's girls who've been here for years. So I knew I had to like stand out and not be like everyone else.
Yeah. Do you have any stories or experiences that you've encountered, or I guess that you would feel comfortable sharing?
God, there's tons of them. I mean, I've got horrible stories. I've got great stories. It depends on what kind of mood you want to go for. I mean,
I'm
there's
good
stories that
for
really,
both.
uh,
Let's start with
well,
the
one,
great stories first, and then we'll work towards the horrible stories.
well, the great stories were, I hate to say it, but meeting like the regulars, like the guys that you knew when they came in, they weren't spending money on anybody else but you. Whether you were wearing jogging pants or half naked, they were there for you. So they would spend tons of money and be out the door. They had the most respect. One of my biggest regulars, one was a chemist. He worked for like, I don't want to say, but a big, huge company that gets sued a lot. He had tons of money. He'd bring me like Ralph Lauren perfume and tons of, slip me hundreds and just leave. Never won anything. Just, kiss on the cheek, a smack on the butt, and I was send him on his way. After I left the club, he still came around for years until he died and still like would bring money. He was driving like 70 miles round trip just to drop off money. So he was a lifer. One guy was a marriage counselor, which I thought was funny because I'm like, what is he doing here? He was like the most square person you'd ever meet. And you would never in a million years think he would go to a place like that. And it was funny because back then you could smoke in bars. And I used to call him pipe smoker because he would smoke a pipe with like really expensive tobacco. Like each of his cigars were like $50.
Mhm.
And he dropped that black Visa down, whatever it was back then. And I mean, I felt like the room would shake when he did it because I was like, yes, there's $100 drink. There's hundreds of dollars in dances. There's tips. And he would sit and actually want to talk. And he was just so down to earth. It was just so weird that it just didn't even seem real that somebody like him was in there. But he was amazing. And then after the club, sometimes we would go out. Not often, but sometimes, we go to like places around here. I'm in the Louisville, Kentucky area.
Okay.
So back then there was like bars like Phoenix Hill and La Bambas, and they were huge. And even Miley Cyrus crashed Phoenix Hill around Derby when she was a teenager. I still don't know how they let her get in and drink, but that's another story. But just seeing like those regulars, like you knew you were going to make money. You didn't have to, you didn't even have to like get naked. You didn't have to do anything. You could just be there and talk about catch up and make. And some of the girls ended up being like sisters, but there were so many that would come and go. You knew like to not like get attached or be too friendly because there's a lot of thieves, cutthroats. The cutthroating was pretty bad. It actually got me in a few fights. I actually almost broke my fist once over getting cutthroat by some of these girls. So they'd smile on your face, but boy, they'd be in that dressing room going through your stuff. Or, you get up to use the restroom or to go get a drink and they'd be right at your table. It was kind of, well, it was a lot of disrespect and that caused a lot of fights. That was just a little downside. You just had to really stay on your stuff. So if you worked in teams, it was even better because you're getting more money. You got someone there watching, making sure someone else don't get to the table. It almost felt like what I could imagine prison would be like to have claim or property or something. It was just you had to really be on your game. And I was drinking Everclear back then because I thought, well, this is the only say this is the only money I make today. I might as well get hammered. Might as well have fun.
Mhm.
That was my brain. That was the way I was thinking
Yeah.
about it. But a lady I work with, believe it or not, she was older, like older, like 50. I don't know how the hell she was there, but she did beat cancer twice. She was a real wild, crazy black lady, and I loved her to death. Goldie, but everybody called her Mama. Anyway, this little young dude from a little shit kicking town in Austin, Indiana, little white dude, he was there, young dude, like 22 or something. He came in on a Wednesday night, and I was working, and my regular pipe smoker was there. We were about to go to Phoenix Hill. I'm like, it's dead in here. Let's go. She wanted to stay and make money, and I was like, it's dead. Let's go. There's no money on Wednesday night. She stayed anyway. And then the very next day, I come in hungover like normal, and everybody said she was dead. And I was like, y'all are bullshit me. Like, no, she's not. And it hadn't quite hit the news yet. And I kept calling her phone. I'm like, she's bullshit. Y'all know she's not. Because she was just crazy like that. I don't know. I just didn't believe it until the cops came in. That was a buzzkill. And there's an hourly motel here. There used to be two back in the day. As far as I know, there's one, Louisville Manor. They should have shut that thing down years ago. It's like herpes infestation. But she did a common thing that a lot of girls did that I did. I never did after that was the customers come in, they're looking for sex, obviously, or something. If most of them are looking for something perverted, obviously. So we go get, make them buy all the drinks where they're getting hammered. You might slip them a little something, make them go night night, whatever the case. We would go to the hotel with them, which was Louisville Manor, like 3 miles away from the bar, and make them take a shower. You grab the money and you leave. They came back to the bar. Then there's plenty of bouncers, and you felt safe, like you got one over on somebody. They deserved it because why were they there anyway? To hell with them. So she tried doing that to this guy, and he caught her leaving, and he did like some wrestler choke out move on her, and she died. And the worst part is, like, he raped her dead body, which is really effed up. And he drove her in her car to a dumpster about a mile away and threw her in there. And it was like Easter. And it's on the news, like it was on the news. You can Google it. And because of a technicality, he only did like 3 years. And I'm like, what the fuck? But the funny thing is, there's a funny part. He learned the idea of like cooking meth or something in prison from some hillbilly inmate. And he went down to the West End, which is a primarily African American neighborhood. Like, you don't go down there unless you're looking for drugs or trouble. And he blew up like a whole damn city block trying to cook meth. And he got like, say 10, 20 years, whatever it was. He got a crazy amount of years. And I'm thinking, like, this dude literally took a life and did all that horrible, nasty stuff to her. And we had to see her autopsy thing on the wall. It was like a projector, like the whole room could see it. I mean, you could see everything, her everything. And I cried, and they made me leave because they didn't want the jury to be swayed or whatever by emotion, which silly, you can't show emotion seeing something like that. It's only human. But anyway, it was just ironic that over drugs and, possibly hurting people, obviously, he got all that time, be it for what he did. He just slap on the wrist. And I'm just like, it's just messed up. So that was pretty crazy. That was pretty horrific. It was horrible. I worked with her that night. I felt guilty. Like, I wish I would have tried harder to get her to leave. But everyone there, like, you knew if you were ever dumb enough to leave with someone, you didn't know who that was or what they were capable of or what they just done before they got there. It was, you just saw money. And you thought you were
Yeah.
smarter than everybody else.
Yeah, that is crazy. So what was it that y'all would slip in their drinks to make them go night night, as you put it?
Oh, well, Ambien's the number one.
What is it?
Ambien will take out a truck.
No.
Yeah, I used to be
Okay.
prescribed Ambien because I have insomnia. I mean, it's not a horrible case of it, but I was getting them prescribed, and the I was at the I hate to say it like that, but I was at the titty bar side. The other side was Deja Vu, which is it was like world famous or globally famous because they're in other parts, other cities. So the showgirls and the strip club, the huge one that drew in everybody, was next door. But we were in between, like there was a bookstore in between, which I called it the dildo store because there wasn't one damn book in there. We were on the bar side, and it was more like laid back, more calm. Hardly anybody ever did the stage because your money was drinks. Why go on stage and spread eagle for like $2-3 when you could work on $100 drink or a bottle? So it really didn't make sense. Or I would just let the other girls do it. Like, if you want to go up there and do that, have at it. But I'm not gonna, show my everything to the world for a bag of Funyuns and a pop. I mean, it's just stupid.
The normal thing to do, like if, these guys come in, they wanna, like you said, obviously they want more. They don't want just dances. They want to have sex or get head or whatever it is. Is that like the typical thing that most of the women would do? Kind of like put something in their drink and make them go night night and
No,
then take their money and leave, or was that some people that would do that? Or
no, just a couple. I mean, most of the other girls, everyone knew how to get something. Somebody's coming to the strip club, they might be looking for weed, or they might be looking for, anybody's got pills, or anybody's got coke, or anybody's got this or that. And I always knew who had what because I had been there long enough. The girls trusted me. I wasn't one of the cutthroats. I was brutally honest. I was like the best friend of everybody. The guys loved me. The girls loved me. I was easy to talk to. I didn't even use a fake name. I used to laugh so hard when they would use fake names. Like, oh, my name's Portia. And I'm like, you're a fucking Pinto. You look like a Pinto. You can't use Portia. They love me. They love me or they hated me. But I was just really down to earth as far as that goes. But I mean, I was just like, some of them had it coming. I mean, a couple of them really did. You would see some out front smoking cigarettes, talking to the wife, and I'm like, "Are you that dumb? You don't go to your car? Like, you hear girls out here giggling and talking about the most random, crazy things, and cars going by honking, and people yelling, and music." And I'm like, God, you guys are so dumb. You're just bound to get busted. But I did that a few times. A few other girls did it a few times, but they were getting so shit faced on their own. A lot of times you didn't really have to do anything.
yeah,
But it's for the rare ones who go to a bar that don't drink. It's like you're in a bar, you don't drink, and there's plenty of girls next door where there's no liquor. why else would you be in here? I mean, it was just duh. You already knew what they wanted, and they didn't have a problem telling you. I can guarantee you on a Friday or Saturday night, I would get like at least 5 to 10, at least easy guys that would come up, wouldn't offer a drink. They didn't give a shit what your name was, nothing about you. They'd be like, "Do you do business?" That was the number one fucking question. And I would get so insulted, and I would be like, "Does your mom?" And I would get so mad. I'd be like, wanting to like throw a drink on them. And I'm sitting here thinking, why should I expect anything less? Look where you're at. But it was because it was me that I felt so offended because I was doing nothing to give off the impression that I would even do that. I wasn't even dressed like raunchy enough, or my behavior wasn't anything to where you would think, okay, she's going to take $100 and we can go outside or whatever.
So your friend that got killed, Mama, um, so she got caught putting the pill into the guy's drink, and that would set him off.
No, what happened was they went back to that hotel.
Hmm.
And I guess, she was running her mouth about him being stinking, like take a shower or nothing was going to happen, which is what all the girls did. That was the number one. Well, I ain't going to mess with you. You need to go take a shower or whatever. And well, the guy's like, well, all right, I'm going to do whatever. I done got him here. It's a sure thing. They take a shower, the girl would take off. So she hadn't slipped him anything, but they were, I hate to ruin her name, but they were doing crack together. That was big. That was still big back then, which is hard to believe because it's so old, but it was still big. And she'd smoke them in like joints or cigarettes. So they were doing that together. Like he even openly admitted it. But I mean,
Okay.
apparently he was just a violent person anyway. I guess he was just so insulted, like, hey, I'm not getting any. B, she stole my stuff. C, she's making me out to be a fool. She's taking off. And the ironic thing is where that dude's from is like almost like an all white place. It's very hillbilly, very racist. And I'm like, of all people for him to go after, it was almost like duh. Like it was all on purpose.
Yeah. Um, have you ever had any sexual encounters at the club or outside of the club after meeting
Yeah, yeah.
somebody in the club?
Yeah, I mean, like the first couple years, hell no. But I could tell you one time I remember there was a young dude came in, like a little bit younger than me, and you're so used to like old, you know, scary looking people come in or somebody you would never talk to unless they were paying you. And there was a young dude came in, and I remember he bought like 5 dances, which was like $100, and I did them all and got tipped, and he was fucking pretty hot, and I was like, oh my god. And there was like two people in there, and I don't know if I was just drunk or baked or all of the above, but did it right there in the booth, and that was it. Didn't know his
Yeah.
name. He left. Never heard from him again. That was it. So there's a notch on the belt. I still have no name to.
Yeah. So you mentioned dating a serial killer. So how did you meet this person? Or did
Well,
you
his name
meet
is.
him during the time at when you were working at the gentleman's club, or was this before or after?
No, I was at the bar Deja Vu. It was called One Placement Show Bar. I was there for 5 years, 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's five. No, believe it or not, I was working for the federal government. Fast forward to, God, I think it was 2018 or 19. And for the first 2 weeks, we did nothing. We got paid for it, but there was nothing to do. So I got bored, got on the computer, and I went on my Amazon Prime account, and I was like, "We're gonna get paid to do nothing. I'm gonna like, watch some Kevin Hart or something." So the documentary Unseen came up, and I'm on to like Dateline and SVU and murders and all that shit, TV wise, and it looked interesting, and I was so thrown off because when you think about serial killers in history, your brain goes right to like Dahmer, this one. They're all white. This was a black dude, which is very rare. Because there's black serial killers. They never get the mention or the credit or the notice in history or whatever. And I've never understood that. But anyway, so I had seen his documentary And I was like, this motherfucker's nuts. If you ever watch it, you'll know, you'll be like, what the hell? So I started watching his where he got on the stand and you're allowed to like talk about not why you did what you did, but how you got there, how you grew up, what happened to you, blah, blah, blah. And there was like two whole episodes of that. And I don't, it's just the weirdest thing. I just was like drawn to this dude. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know if I don't want to say love at first sight, because that might sound even weird. There was just so weird, like I was just drawn to him. So I'm like, F it. Why not? I've got his information and I wrote him a letter. And I never heard anything back. And I was like, well, fuck you. I was so insulted, so stupid. I know. I wrote him again. And then I wrote him on that JPay, which, if anybody knows somebody in prison, like email or whatever. I wrote him on there. And he finally wrote back and he was like, send me a video. I want to make sure you are who you say you are. Because if anybody ever Googles him, he famously never, ever gave an interview, ever. One of the few serial killers that never gave an interview. So I guess he thought I was like, either one of his victims' family. I could have been pressed. He never did tell me why he was so precautious, but I can imagine the threats and all the crazy shit that he got sent. So we just started talking from there. And all the way up until he died, I was still on his visiting list and I never got to go because of COVID. And he died right around COVID. So I never did get to go, which I'm still pissed about. But he would describe like the visiting room and stuff. Cause I'm like, is it behind glass? Because he is who he is. I mean, he killed like 11 women and had them all in his house, like all over his house, looking at them every day, cooking dinner 2 feet away from dead bodies. They were in there for 2 years. I can't imagine. But I told him at the beginning, this wasn't an interview. I didn't want to ask him any questions. I didn't want to know what happened. I let that be known off the top. So we talked about everyday stuff and family and friends and our life. And I mean, I've got a lot of his art. I got flowers he made. I could show you all this stuff. I've got video calls. I mean, the JPay messages alone are just creepy. But I have all that stuff, and it's messed up because he couldn't handle drunk Melissa, and I guess I was a little nuts or mean when I'm drinking. And he was like, I need to just do this time by myself. Like, it's too much. And he died within a year after that. And I only found out from like MSNBC that he died. And I'm like, how many people to walk around and say that's how they found out their ex died was on like fucking national or global news? But yes, I'm very pissed I didn't get to actually see him. But he said the visiting room was like, his hands were free, but his feet were shackled to the ground. And I was just sitting there thinking, he's never going to get out. He already avoided death because he died. His health was really bad. He had a bad heart and all this other stuff. And he got really, really super fat. He was eating like crazy. He looked like when he died, he looked nothing like any of the videos or anything. Looked nothing like it.
What was his name?
Anthony Sowell. He was the Cleveland Strangler, is what they called him. And I still am trying to get a hold of stupid Rob Zombie because I think he would do a perfect movie. There's never been a movie about him. There's only been like a couple crappy books that I gave 5 minutes. I'm like, these books even stuck. I still think somebody needs to do a movie about him. I think it would be freaking huge. And I've already talked to Bill Moseley, who plays all those scary people in his Rob Zombie movies. I met him at one of those horror cons and I gave him the book and I'm like, you need to tell him to make this movie. It will be effing huge. And then, I don't know, I changed my phone number and never heard anything.
Yeah. Have you ever shared any stories with you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of really fucked you up really bad?
No, but he was really corny. And when he laughed,
It's corny.
he was corny as hell. When he laughed, he had a cackle. It was like a witch's cackle. It was scary as fuck. It was creepy. Uh, he did one day. I was driving to work. I was at the Census Bureau, that's where I worked. I was driving there, which was like a 2 mile drive from my house. And I remember being at a stop sign, and I asked him randomly, I'm like, "Have you ever like dated white women before?" because all his victims were black. He's black. The whole neighborhood was like a primarily African American neighborhood. But I just happened to randomly just ask that. I don't even know what made me think about it. And he was like, you know what? No. He's like, maybe that was my problem. And I'm like, dude, you just killed all these women. Like, what the hell? What kind of crazy answer is that? And I do remember, yeah, he shared a lot of stuff with me. One time he called and he was like, baby, sit down. Are you ready for a laugh? And I'm like, fuck, what is he going to say? I was scared. And he said, they're trying to get me for a hate crime. I said, what? He said, they're trying to add a hate crime statute. This was never on the news as far as I know. And I was like, really? And he said, because all my victims were black. He said, hello, I'm black. How am I going to hate my own self? And he thought that was just the funniest shit. And he would laugh and laugh. And I'm like, wow. And he did, oh God, one crazy story he told me, and I know it's true, was he was in there with other serial killers and rapists and stuff. Obviously, he was on death row. He said, whatever third party contractor or whoever that prison hired to like redo the windows in that area, one of them either didn't do the best job, and one of the inmates actually fucking escaped. A guy a couple cells down, he never told me his name, but he was in there for, heinous, horrible acts. Motherfucker actually got out and almost made it out the whole fence. And to this day, that was never on the news. And I'm like, of course they don't want to, they're not ever going to admit, a serial killer like damn near escaped the prison. He did hint around once. He didn't come out and say it, but he did hint around once that like there's at least one more victim. And one day I was fucking drunk as shit about a month ago. And I actually had the nerve to call the fucking homicide place. I was going to even tell them, I know you think this is nuts. You need to go back, listen to those prison calls. As dumb as they sound or stupid, you need to listen, because he threw a hint, and I can't remember his exact wording, but I know when I hung up, I was like, I knew there was at least one more. And I'm like, I don't know who it is. I couldn't tell you. All I know is it's somebody around that time period. So I hate to
Yeah.
say, like, some poor family still has a missing person, and like this fucker did it, and they'll never have peace because they've never been found. But I don't think he was on bullshit. I really think he was dead up serious, even though he was laughing. And he would laugh about the most serious stuff, and I'm like, yo, you're ate up. Oh God, oh man, just random stories. I know one time I asked him randomly. I was like, "What is the like weirdest or darkest or strangest thing anyone has asked you for?" Because he sells his artwork, and that's how I got the paintings. I've got one of Marilyn Manson. I'm dying to get a hold of him to get to him, and I can't get a hold of his people. And that really makes me mad because I'm sure he'd love it. But anyway, I was like, "What is the strangest thing someone has ever asked you for?" And I'm thinking he's gonna say like blood or like semen or I don't know, something weird. And he was like, flesh. Like he didn't say skin, he said flesh. And even that word now is just like somebody was gonna pay all this money for him to like cut his skin off and send it in the fucking mail.
That's what they wanted, just a piece of his flesh.
Yeah, literally. And
How much were they trying to pay him for that?
he never told me how much, but he was like, I'd ate for a year, and I was like, oh my God. Now one story he thought was effing hilarious, and he did laugh about this. I was at my aunt's. We were watching Dateline of all things. I had to go to her basement because she would be like, "Why are you talking to that crazy MF? What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Just shut up." Um, he told me he didn't say the news anchor person. He never told me who, but somebody big on like Dateline or one of them. He said they were on a big show. I totally believe him. He said they came all the way from like New York to do an interview with him. The warden approved it. He said they traveled all the way there to talk to him. They got all the way to his cell, and he said he went off on them and said, "Just because you got the warden's approval, you didn't ask me first." He said, "I ain't telling you shit." He said, "I sent them right away, and they turned around and left pissed off." He just never did an interview. Never, ever, ever, ever. And we just never talked about any of the shit he did because I promised him I just I didn't want to know, and that's not why I was reaching out. Of course, I had questions. I want to be like, how are you cooking eggs and fucking bacon like 2 feet away from body that's been here for 2 years? Like, I can't imagine how bad this place stunk. I've seen the pictures, I've seen all that stuff, and I'm like, just ill,
Yeah.
pretty messed up.
Yeah. Well, Melissa, we're coming towards the end of our interview. I definitely would like to have you back if you don't mind, especially, since my camera's
Oh man,
down. You seem like you have a lot more
yes,
stories that you could share, and I would love
hell
to hear
yeah, I
those
do.
stories. So hopefully we could stay in contact, and I'll reach
Yes,
out to you, and we could set up another day and time for like another interview, if you don't mind.
nope, you got it. I've got tons of them
But like I said, we are at
stories.
the end of our interview, so I do have the final question that I ask all my guests that come on to the show. Um, from your perspective, what turns women on sexually and romantically?
God, I think just being treated with respect and being loved and affection, honesty, communication, all the normal stuff. You don't have to go out your way. You don't have to do all this extra whatever. You don't have to make big gestures. You don't have to do all that. Just be decent and loving and a good person.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for coming on to the show. Like I said, I'll stay in contact with you.
All right. And if you want, I will happily send you some pictures of his art. It's a little creepy, but it's nice. You might find it interesting. If I have to tell you about that time I went off on OJ Simpson at the Derby, it was hilarious.
All right. All right. You take care. Talk to you later. All right.
Thanks.